Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Gary Meshberg. Welcome, thanks for joining us today for our Encelium monitor training. Just waiting for some others to log in, so we'll get going in just a minute or two here. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. This is Gary Meshberg. Thanks for joining the Encelium monitor training. We're going to get going here in just a minute. We're just waiting for some others to join us. So just hang in there with us. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Gary Meshberg. Thank you for joining us for the Encelium monitor training. I hope you find this session informative. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everybody here. I just need to swap my presenter mode here, and there we go. All right, you should be seeing full screen. And all right, we're going to go ahead and kick it off. This session is being recorded. And a little bit about the presentation today. So this is an online presentation to really provide you an overview of the Polaris monitor software. It's intended to give you a general understanding of what Polaris monitor shows, the mouse clicks, the most common features, and the narrative that goes behind it. And we're also going to show you the resources to click through, the links to be able to not only get monitor, but some other types of Encelium tools and resources. You know, there's really no substitute for practicing and an effective demo. If we've been in front of customers before and it's your first time using it, it's probably not the time to show it in front of a customer. So please take the time, practice it. It's very intuitive. You don't need a user's manual. This video, along with just some practice and clicking through 10 minutes on monitor and playing with it and practicing some of the links, I think it's probably all you need. And then you just kind of get better from there. But certainly this video will be a leave behind resource. It'll be sent to you as a follow-up. So if you're not confident on monitor, but you'd like to show it, feel free to use the video. And that way it's a canned presentation and it will be customer appropriate as well. As mentioned, there will be a page on a slide that is going to show you the resources and some of the links. Some of you have access to monitor already, so I'm just going to ask that don't log in during the presentation because you might be making changes while I'm doing something on the presentation, so we might bump against each other, which is fine in monitor to do, but maybe not the most effective during a training presentation. I'll have some time at the end for Q&A, so please, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. Everybody is muted currently, but we'll go ahead and open up the floor for your questions. All right, so let's jump in. When we talk about Encelium, Encelium X is the name of the product. Encelium X has two software platforms. One's called Monitor and one's called Config. Again, product name is Encelium X. And the software names are monitor and config. Just so you know, and it's a comfort to our specifying customers and end users that the customer will own both of these. So there's not an additional cost per user, there's no annual licensing fee. If it's 1 user or 10 users and we want the nurses on the 4th floor to only be able to see and operate the 4th floor, they have that by default. There's no reoccurring or licensing fees of any kind. So everything you're going to see today is included in the purchase price of the product. When you think about monitor, think about your car dashboard, and if your window washer fluid is low, you'd get an indication. But it doesn't tell you that your timing belt is off. So monitor is exactly as it says. It's monitoring the system. Things that are going well and things that are not going well, things that might need your attention if you're a facility manager. So it's a friendly dashboard. It gives you those quick views, whereas config or Polaris configuration is as that sounds. It's the way to set up the system, gives you more detail. So monitor might look like this on the left, where you have the ability to zoom in and view your space, whereas config might be, hey, I want to define a keypad, and more than that, a button on the keypad, and more than that, the functionality of that button on that keypad in that specific location. That's more than just monitoring your system. That would be a characteristic of Polaris config. All right, so high level of config before I get into the live demo. It's just really easy to navigate. It's intuitive. It's pinch and zoom. You can see what's going on your system. When I say your system, really talking to the end user here and trying to give you the narrative that says, hey, this is not our system, this is your system. So when you think of facility people, typically walkie-talkie on the hip, cell phone in their hand, rarely in their office. They're running around their building, keeping the building operating well and people happy within their building. And monitor is that tool that gives them that mobility, whether it's on their phone or on a tablet, or if they're sitting at their desk behind a PC, to be able to look at navigation easily. You can see a snapshot of not only an office, a keypad, a sensor, but the entire floor or the entire campus. So multiple floors or multiple buildings, and then drilling into the multiple floors. You can see the floors, you can see the status. Lights are on in yellow, lights are off in blue. You can get reports and bar charts to see exactly what a particular space might be doing. And all of this is via a web browser. So there is no app. There's nothing you have to download. Just think of you would go to a bookmarked web page and access the system or access monitor from that. In order to get monitor, many of you on this call already have it. If you don't have it, send me an email. So this presentation, the slide deck is going to be shared with you as well as the video, but shoot me an email and just say, hey, Gary, I need access to monitor. I'll use your email address, set you up with a temporary password, and you'll just log into the demo.encelium.com. And as you see on the right-hand side here, that's what will pop up is your email and password. And what I found to be a lot of fun is I actually, if I'm doing a presentation live and I'm in front of an audience, I like to have my laptop with monitor running, and then I have it on my phone at the same time. And it's super, really, really slick as you can change the status of a space on your phone, and then on the big screen or on the monitor, people are seeing that, and the speed is instantaneous. So it's really effective. Please practice that if you're intending on doing it, but it's very, very effective. It's a nice wow factor. Okay, there is an 8-part video series on monitor as well. That's part of the Legrand University video content. We're going to talk a little bit more on the other videos that are in Legrand University. And as well as this video, once it's saved, we will post it to Legrand University as well. Okay, so I'm going to skip past the part of the screen that the image that you see on the right-hand side is your email and password. So we're going to assume that you've logged in. And I'm going to exit out of here and go over to the video. I'm sorry, to the live monitor dashboard. Okay, so when you log in, username and password, this is the screen that pops up. So let's get into it. There's a number of different tiles, and I'm just going to use my scroll wheel and scroll down. And what you're actually seeing here is on this demand tile. I'm just going to go through and kind of give you the high level overview of what these tiles do. So the demand, again, think if you're the facility manager. Oh, I can see, okay, there's my weekend. Yeah, my demand was low. That makes sense. I can see where maybe the middle of the day people were out of their office, maybe at lunch, and maybe the occupancy sensor turned off the light, so there's a little bit less demand. So again, you're looking at this to say this kind of makes sense. If you want to drill into it a little deeper, you can hit on the reports tab here, and it'll open up. And what you're seeing here is the red is usually red within monitors is a color that's usually not good or needs your attention. What I mean by not good, this is where you're consuming energy. And if we had all the lights on full over time, the red bar would be up at the top here. But now we start carving away some energy. So one of the beautiful parts about monitors, not just the ability to control lights, but to see historically, real time, the energy savings that you're seeing. Now this is site-wide, the entire system or the entire portfolio, one building or a campus of buildings, all encapsulated into one large view. With the drop down, you can actually select a specific space. So I want to look at the collaboration space. I can click on the collaboration space and it'll show me the savings. I can actually drill into the period of time, whether it's a day or a week. This is exportable, this information as well. All right, let me back up one view, go back to reports. And so what you're seeing here is, if I just define these colors at the top, so the demand, okay, that's the energy we're using. Yellow is daylight harvesting, DLHV, although you don't see daylight harvesting here because in this particular demo, there is no daylight harvesting. Load shedding, again, not being used in this particular demo, but if you had demand response or load shedding and you were saving energy as part of that lighting control strategy, you would see a portion of that shown here in the green color. Manual control. So manual control is when you have a scene selection. I'm hitting a 30% scene, or I'm actually going and dimming up and dimming down manually. So that's what you start to see, or think of that as your manual override. So in this particular day, the lights were off a portion because we had the beige color, which is OCS or occupancy sensing. So we're carving out. So again, there's some red here, but we're carving out the red, replacing it with occupancy sensing, indicating savings. We're carving out in the blue, manual control, people manually dim that down. And in purple, it says TS, and that's time schedule. So we're carving out energy savings. And so what you're left with is just the remainder of the red bars. You can actually see a fairly significant drop in energy use based on the different lighting control strategies. So again, site-wide or based on the drop-down, you can look at that in a particular space. You can adjust it by your duration of time. You can drill in, let's say, hey, I want to get into a 1 hour view versus a week view. And then you can look at it from demands, consumption, and demand reduction. Again, this is a high-level talking points on the system. If we look at the next tile, very similar. Instead of demand, remember, demand is how much am I using or consuming at any point in time. Super helpful when you're starting to talk to utilities about time of use or critical peak pricing, CPP, to be able to say, hey, at any point in time, I'm not going to demand more than 60% of the potential energy consumed in the building. So there's sometimes incentives that utility providers will give a building owner based on not hitting a peak in a demand on any particular day. Savings, on the other hand, is overtime. So very similar. You click on savings, there's a pie chart. This is site-wide now that says, okay, we're consuming whatever 55-ish%. So you can basically see in occupancy sensing and time scheduling, if I just hover over these slices of the pie, it'll actually tell me what the savings are by those particular strategies. So moving down, I'm just going to scroll down. All of the actions within Monitor, there's no keystrokes. So everything is going to be from your mouse click and scroll wheel on your mouse. In this particular report tile, we have, it's called system status. It says there are 3 of 3 managers. We have 3 managers and they're online. So when you're getting into config, you're setting up the database, defining your keypads, your load controllers, you're looking at, is it wired, is it wireless? There's sometimes attributes specific to each one. In monitor, we don't care about that. You're monitoring your building. Look, I have a load controller, I have a sensor, I have a keypad. I just want to make sure my building is operating well. So we don't get into necessarily saying, well, you have 3 managers, are they wired or wireless? It doesn't really matter at this point because we're in monitor in terms of a task that we're providing or looking to answer those questions. So we have 3 managers. They're online, looks good, have a green half lifesaver here, and then 73%, the building is 73% occupied. In the shortcuts tab, you have schedules and calendars. So I'm going to click on that and I'm going to show you from a time schedule standpoint. On the first floor, it says we have a time schedule associated to the first floor. In fact, we have that time schedule assigned to 5 different spaces. If I click on the first floor, it's actually going to open up that schedule and it's going to say, we have a schedule on the first floor in 5 different spaces that goes from 12 to 9 p.m. If I wanted to add a schedule or modify, I just basically click and drag in any part of the calendar, let go of my mouse click, and now it's going to allow me to define what that time schedule is. Does it repeat? Is it monthly, weekly, daily? Does it repeat? Does it go overnight? I want it to start at 10 p.m. and go to 5 a.m. So if you cross midnight, where it's basically crossing a calendar day, then you can click the next day tab. I'm going to cancel out of here, but you get the idea. So you can create your schedules, modify your schedules. You create your schedules in config, and then you can modify them here in monitor. Well, okay, Gary, there's 5 spaces that have that 12 to 9 p.m. schedule. Where are they? So I'm going to show you in just a second here what those spaces or where those spaces are. Event history. I'm not going to click on this one because in the essence of a training, it takes a moment to download all the information. However, I will show you the event history on a specific space where it's not trying to pull as much information. If I were to click here, it's probably going to take about a minute. Of course, that's a long time to wait when you're doing a live training here. Okay, so when I scroll to the very bottom, again, that's it. So monitor, again, is very clean, designed to get to the information quickly. In this particular case, I have floor 1 and floor 2. It could say building 1 and building 2, 3, 4, 5. So I could have multiple buildings, could have multiple floors. So think of this as a menu where I could click on a space and would open up that menu. I'm going to click on floor 1, but before I do, I want to show you something. The managers are fine. If there was an issue with a manager, I would have a red badge that would tell me that I have something that needs attention. In this particular case, on the first floor, by the way, we've put this in intentionally to show an error and what that looks like to the facility manager who's running around their building. There's an error on the system. We created it intentionally. It's on the first floor and there's one error. So if I click on the first floor, remember, you expect your building to be operating well, and most of the time it does. What happens when it's not operating well? I want to know. So at this particular moment, you have already had received an email that you would set up with an email address in Polaris config. Right? So number 1, you got an email. Number 2, I see it on my phone. I have this red badge. I click on floor 1, and what you're seeing is the space. It's in the integration workroom, but right away, you see a red room. Lights are on in yellow. Lights are off in blue. But again, because there's, and I'm not focusing on the errors only, but I just, since it's there, I wanted to start here. Basically, this room in red is highlighting your attention. So I can use my scroll wheel, zoom in, and if I click on this particular device that's circled in red, it will tell me that there's it's a wireless device. It has battery, but there's a communication failure. So the device is offline. Please know, I'm going to zoom back out with my scroll wheel, click and drag with my mouse click. If I were to click on the luminaire itself and turn it on, everything else in the system still works. The device is offline, but that just means the keypad is not communicating, and we need to look at that. So again, the ability to see what's going on, high level, and be responsive to address the problem. Okay, so that's how errors are shown. I'm going to go back to the flow of this presentation. So I clicked on the first floor. It brought me to this view. And again, lights are on in blue, lights are on in yellow and off in blue. But you see this space over here, it's not quite deep yellow or not quite blue. It indicates the intensity of the lights. So if I click on this bright yellow space, it says, okay, first of all, it tells me the name of the space, it's open office. It tells me its percentage, it's at 90%. And if I click on this darker blue space, it tells me it's the office and it's at 1%, as compared to this particular office space at 60%. And just to kind of illustrate, if I just dim it down a little bit, you'll see that there's actually a resolution change. So if you're a facility manager, just by looking, and zoom out here a little bit, just by looking at your floor plan, you can get an idea of what's going on in the space. The floor plan is imported as a PDF or an AutoCAD drawing into config. So basically what we're seeing here with monitor is a representation or a scaled back version of config. Because again, you don't need the timing belt, you don't need the level of detail if I'm just trying to look at my system and my building overall. So monitor is a reflection of config. So you can have config, but you can't have monitor without config, if that makes any sense. You start with a database and then monitor is a reflection of the configuration database. Okay. What else do we see in the different colors is if I zoom in, let me go into a space that is unoccupied. So here is the operation storage and the lights are off in blue. And you see a sensor that does not have a green ring around it as compared to a space beside it that the lights are on in yellow and it does have a green ring. So basically what this is showing us is that the occupancy sensor sees somebody in the space. It detects motion. Kind of makes sense, right? Oh, no motion, lights are off, motion, and lights are on. So again, a nice way to really see what's going on in your space just by zooming out with my scroll wheel, get an idea of what's going on. Anywhere you click is going to identify the space you're in. So if I click on this space up here, it tells me it's the open office. If I click on this particular space here, it tells me it's the collaboration area. I can select a scene. So let's go into some of the menu options here on the left. So I could be down my 30% scene, so my room corresponds. And so I am doing a webcast with you. This is a simulation. I'm not actually changing the lights on somebody physically right now, but the system is set up as a live system. So when you are showing this and using this to demonstrate the capabilities, you're actually referencing up here at the top, you see it's Encelium or demo.encelium.com. This is a live system. So the speed, when I click on 90% and the lights in the room respond, that's real time. So this is a real system. This would be it's not smoke and mirrors with a slick online demo. Although the demo is pretty slick, it's a real demo. Okay, here we go. So I'll go back to the collaboration space. I can create edit a scene. So if I'm in 90%, but my 90%, if I zoom in here, you see these two fixtures? Happens to be that I do have luminaire level lighting control in this particular room. And I know that because if I click on the room itself and I scroll down, it shows all the types of devices, the hardware, keypads, sensors, luminaire control modules. If I zoom out here a little bit, if I click on the luminaire control module here, it'll actually show me where it is. Do that again one more time. Pick another one. So it shows you highlighted in red. In this particular case, let me go back to finish that thought on the scenes. If I was actually selecting a scene, I could actually go in now and say, well, yeah, I really want the fixtures to be a little bit brighter here next to my projection screen or darker. So let's go ahead and edit that scene. And what it'll do is actually pull up the various sliders or dimmers or modules in this particular case. So I can simply adjust them and redefine what that scene looks like and save that particular scene. So I just dim that one particular fixture down so you can see that graphically it's shown in a darker blue at 23% and not quite as dark is at 50%. So again, very, very intuitive, super easy to use. You can create as many scenes as you would like. It doesn't even necessarily have to be what the button station. It might be a 3-scene button station, but you might want to have 5 scenes that you can access, or 2 additional scenes that you can access, perhaps just from your mobile device. Now let me stay in the collaboration space here. And if I scroll down, let's finish the menus that are shown in the left-hand side. Energy report. So similar to what we looked at on the main home page, but now it's actually looking at the specific room. So I won't go through this again because we've already looked at it, but it's basically what's going on specifically in that particular collaboration space. If I'm looking at the next tab, which we haven't looked at yet, it's called occupancy report. In the occupancy report, this is basically showing us what the sensors have seen or were triggered based on occupied in red or unoccupied in green, or partially occupied is that when somebody left the space in the timeout period before the lights actually turned off. So let's say you're a facility person and somebody said, you know, the lights on the first floor collaboration space didn't come on, they're not working, or appeared not to be working. One of the first things facility folks will do is open up this and see, well, what does the sensor look like? And in this particular case, with the red and green, lights are on in red, lights are off in green. The sensor looks like it's doing its thing. It looks like it's operating correctly. Perhaps there might be an issue with the circuit breaker, with the line voltage, with the luminaire, with the driver. So again, being responsive, being reactive, and keeping people happy. This is one of the tools that facility people now have that say, okay, I can see if a device is offline. If somebody calls me up and says, hey, I have an issue, I can actually look at this and say, well, okay, don't go chasing the sensor and save time because it's probably not the sensor. Look at something else that might be the core issue of what's going on. The third purple tab over here is called zone history. So remember I was talking about the history overall. I'm going to show you the history now by one particular space. It pulls up the information a little quicker. So what it's doing now is going out, getting all the information for the collaboration space since day one. So as soon as the system is energized and up and running, and programmed, it starts pulling information. So this is a nice way to see, okay, the occupancy sensor, there was a manual input, it was the off scene, and you can sort it by different types of views. One I like to look at is the zone brightness change. Sometimes things happen that are supposed to happen, but perhaps the user thinks something is going on. Like for example, we looked at a schedule earlier that showed from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. we have a schedule. And then the lights were going to turn off at, let's say, 9:01 p.m. And perhaps the lights turned on at 9:30. And somebody says, what's going on? Like the lights are supposed to be off, but they're actually on. There must be a problem with the system. So you might be actually chasing a problem that's not actually a problem. So what I mean by that is if you look here in the collaboration space, under zone brightness, this just tells me what's going on. Oh yeah, the lights were turned on to 48% because somebody actually pressed a button. So sometimes things are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, but somebody might think the system is operating erratically or it's just not doing what it's supposed to do. This is another gut check to say, yes, wait, hold on, stand down. The system did exactly what it's supposed to do because at 9:30, somebody came in, hit a button, turned the lights on to 48%. So again, the ability to see information, occupancy information, zone history, brightness settings, very, very helpful if you're managing your building. Okay, so that's the left-hand side. So you kind of get an idea, just surf around, zoom in, zoom out, click on things. You can't break the demo. So again, please practice this. A couple of other tabs at the top here, we have what's called schedule. Oh, wait a second, we're in the first floor. I click on this tab over here, I could actually go to the second floor. So quickly pulls up the second floor. Did you see how fast that was? Hopefully with the Zoom meeting here, you're seeing it as fast as I'm seeing it, but to toggle between floors, I could back out to the main page, but I could also hit this tab up here and toggle between the two. I'm gonna go back to floor one, but super fast. And this is how fast the information is being pulled up. So again, a lot of times people just don't like to wait even 3 or 4 seconds to be productive and get the information they're looking for. All right, I'm gonna refresh our memories here. Let me go back to the home screen, go to schedules and calendars. Now I'm speeding up a little bit because you've seen this already. So here we go. In the floor 1, and click on that, there's my 12 to 9 p.m. schedule. It's assigned to 5 different spaces. Where are they? Let's go and take a look. So I'm going to back out, scroll down to floor 1, click on floor 1. Floor 1 quickly populates. Okay, at the top here, control, that's what we're looking. Let's take a different view. So I'm going to click on the schedule. It'll show me the schedule view. The drop-down menu tells me what the schedule is and what zones, 1, 2, 3, 4, there's my 5 zones. So that's what they look like in text. Graphically, here they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the beautiful part is in config, you actually create the time schedule. So this is the way it's set up, is you create the time schedule. Okay, I have a 12 to 9 p.m. time schedule. Where do I want them to go? Well, in this particular layout, it doesn't make sense to put them in the private offices because a lighting control strategy with occupancy sensing might make more sense, might be code compliant as well. However, maybe in the reception area, I want to run on a time schedule, and then outside of that time schedule, let me show you here on control. Remember, this was one of those 5 spaces. So outside of that time schedule, the occupancy sensors will kick in. So this is actually 2 lighting control strategies in one space. Run the time schedule. The time schedule has a higher priority over occupancy sensing, meaning that if there's a time schedule from 12 to 8, basically these occupancy sensors are disabled. They're still tracking information, but they're not actually controlling the lights because the time schedule says, nope, I know what you wanted in your sequence of operations. You wanted the lights to stay on during this period. At 9:01, time schedule has expired, and then the occupancy sensors, because we actually have the hardware in this particular space, will actually kick in and start controlling the lights. And that's reflected in all of those reports. So again, being able to see where your time schedules are by space. The third tab is some of our product has the ability to use batteries. Batteries are spec'd out with an analog battery to last 10 years. The devices that have the battery in this particular view are the ones that are in green. And if I hover over, it actually shows me that the battery has 80%. If the battery gets down to about the 40% strength, it will actually go into battery critically low. It will send you, the facility manager, an email telling you that yeah, you might want to tend to your batteries, they're starting to get weak. You know, when it fails, it's kind of too late. However, if you did get a notification that the battery was getting weak and you didn't do anything about it and the device failed and went offline, you would have received that device communication. So you would get a notification that the battery was weak, and then you get another notification if there was a communication failure in this particular case. All right, I'll go back to control. There's 3 dots that I do want to show you at the very top right. And the 3 dots are basically tells you the information. So there's my username. I was registered as Digital Lumens prior to coming to Legrand. So that's my admin. Now I have admin. So I can come in and look at the version of monitor. In this particular case, we're running version 5.8. And in the admin, I have the ability to assign. So now I'm the administrator. It means I have full permissions. And some of you on the call, I'm sure, are listed in here. Most of these are our either internal staff or our lighting agents. And this demo, by the way, is only available to you. It's not designed to be the demo itself to an end user. If you have that request, please run that to your RSM for review. But the intent here is Polaris monitor. The demo.encelium.com is for our agent partners and internal Legrand staff only. Okay, and then the email, the events, so there's logs and backup and system information. I'm not going to go through each one of these, less important, but there's some information as to the type of monitor system that you have. If you're saying, hey, Gary, I want to get that email, if my battery's getting weak, where do I send it to? So this is where you'd actually put in that information. So again, unlimited number of users. A user, I do want to show you this. Let me back up 1 second. This is kind of important. So let me find somebody here. I'm going to use Andre Chaloni as an example. for Andre. Andre is head of our field service team for Canada. And Andre has the ability to look at, he's not an administrator, he doesn't have access to Polaris config, and in monitor, he has some limited access. So setting him up, we can say, okay, your organization-wide, actually you have access to the demo in building A, but we really don't want you to be messing around with anything in floor 1. You only have access to floor 2. So think of a nurse on a floor. They perhaps only have access to their floor. Perhaps they can only see what's going on. They can't make changes. They can't save changes. So your user rights and your admin rights are definable by space and by function. So again, and no limited to the number of users, no cost per user, no annual licensing of any kind. Okay, so we've talked about the information about monitor. We've looked at the different tiles, the reports available, the system status, the ability to look at a floor, and that's it. That's what monitor provides. Very easy. So in detail, in about 30 minutes, we were able to look at what monitor is and the functionality. Day in and day out, if I'm in front of customers doing a presentation, this is about 5 to 10 minutes because I'm just hitting the high points. And I won't go into all the detail. And then we field questions. But again, to be able to even hold up your phone in front of somebody and do this, you're in a restaurant, you're having lunch with a client, pull up demo.encelium.com and show what's available. Pass the phone to the customer and say, you try it. Look how easy this is. I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Let me go back to full screen here. And I'm just going to fill in some of the talking points here. Just go back to the right view for everybody. There we go. Okay, so back on track here. Send me the request. Well, I'll make sure you're registered. Send an email back with your password. Monitor summary. Really managing your lighting on the go. You can look at the status of the system. You can control the lights. You can analyze with reports and system logs. You can respond. You see in red if there's something that needs your attention. Getting emails. So there's alerts if something is wrong. You can troubleshoot issues quickly in real-time views. And it's touch-friendly interface. So there's smooth navigation, pinch and zoom to look at the system. I did want to add something to this presentation. Sometimes you might need an image, or you're not comfortable showing. You maybe haven't practiced monitor live. So what I've done is I built in the talking points into some slides. There are some hidden slides in this presentation that you'll get when we send you the presentation. But basically, it's now a way for you to say, hey, look, you can look at reports. You can look at lights that are on or off in the center image here, yellow versus blue. I can look at the historical logs. Now that you've seen all this, hopefully it's making a little bit more sense. You can see what the status is. On the left-hand side, it tells you what the percentage of light and what room you're looking at, where my time schedules are, not only where they are, but what they are, and being able to edit or set up new time schedules, to be able to make space adjustments or adjust the intensity of a luminaire, even with or without setting up a scene or adjusting a scene. Maybe you're in a scene, I just want to be able to lower the lights over my head at this particular moment. And then a whole series of reports. Consumption, savings, demand, over time, right down to a 1-minute time resolution. And then also the system logs that we looked at earlier is like, why did my lights change? I don't know, let's take a look at the logs and see if those can help us answer some questions. Speaking of questions, we often receive these frequently asked questions. So I'm gonna go through a few questions. I just wanna excuse me while I read the slide here, but this is just many things, routine questions that we get. So here we go. What is monitor? The Encelium system features 2 graphical user interface platforms. Polaris config, that's the system's full database, which is used to program and operate the system. Whereas Polaris monitor pulls information from config and displays it with a more user-friendly view. You can use it for mobile devices as well. And how many users can access Monitor? There's no limit to the number of users. Is there an additional cost for Monitor? And if so, what is the cost per user? There is no additional cost. There's no licensing fee. There's no reoccurring yearly registration cost of any kind. Yeah, but do I need to download an app? Absolutely not. Access to Monitor is like you would access a normal web page. Most commonly you bookmark the page and you click on it, username and password, and you're into Monitor. How does a user access Monitor? Again, just like a web page. So if somebody says, well, what do I have to download from the apps? No, you don't have to do that. You're just going to a web page. So what can I review with Monitor? Whole list: energy demand reduction and consumption savings by the site or a space or a specific device, occupancy sensor status and the reports, the system status if a device is on or offline. I can see time schedules. Better yet, they can see time schedules, the entire system, many buildings. So right down from the portfolio of buildings to a specific device. Each building, floor, space, and device, the lighting status, on, off, or percentage, the sensor status, the wall stations show up, luminaire control devices. If there's an error on a device, you can see your battery strength and event history, i.e. what we also call the system logs or the zone history, and you can back up and restore the system and when that actually happened, the dates. So what can I make changes to within Monitor? You can change light levels, preset scenes, time schedules, the naming and descriptions, your administration, i.e. user access and passwords to your account, the report time range, you can zoom in to look at a particular week or a particular minute, and the email setup. Are there admin rights to allow specific people access to specific spaces? Yes. A user can be set up to view and control one room up to the entire site. Can Monitor notify me about issues with the performance of the system? Yes. Set up to send an email should the system detect an error, i.e. low battery strength or devices offline. And what kind of reports can I view? You can view energy demand reduction, consumption savings, event history, and you can view and download these reports as a comma-separated value, CSV file. What operating system does Monitor support for smartphones and tablets? How about Android or Apple iOS for a smartphone? Monitor supports both. So it doesn't matter if you have a tablet on Android or smartphone on iOS, both are compatible. Is Polaris config required to use Monitor? Yes. Config is the actual database. Monitor will pull its information from config. More advanced operations, space reconfiguration, zone setup, device mapping and changes, those are all performed on config. Monitor and or config changes are reflected in real time on each. So if you make a change on one, it's reflected on the other. Does a user need to set up Monitor? No. Config performs all the functions as Monitor. However, Monitor is more user-friendly and the preferred interface for day-to-day system use. Config will operate without Monitor. However, Monitor will not operate without config. Again, config is a database, so you wouldn't have a system unless you use config to set it up as well. And again, no additional cost. So let's manage expectations. What will Monitor do? This is a little bit of a repeat, but good refresh. Quick status of the system, high-level information. You can control your space, modify time schedules. It'll inform you of system issues. You can run reports, access to your account, control via PC, tablet, and phone. And earlier I showed that the version of Monitor that we did the demo on today is 5.8. There's continuous improvement. So Monitor is always having enhancements. Our crew, our R&D team are hard at work adding new enhancements to Monitor all the time. So, and those are communicated back out on our town hall meetings, on our agent updates. What won't Monitor do? If you're trying to reconfigure your space, trying to redraw the zones, that would be done on the config level or version of the software. whether it's saying, hey, I want the timeout and sensitivity on an occupancy sensor to be changed, that would be done on config. If I'm looking to replace a device, I can see there's a device went offline. If I need to replace that, I'm actually doing that on config. And if I'm looking to assign or create a new time schedule, I can edit a time schedule, but I'm creating the time schedules on config. The important part is the owner owns, as mentioned earlier, both config and monitor. They have the rights to do this. They own it without reoccurring licensing. So speaking of resources, there are a number of video and training content on both the FAST portal, usually for our startup techs, as well as the Legrand University website. They're already there. So if you're looking for a refresh, hey, we have a new hire, I'd like to get them on board. We have, and this is video content as well. There are sales videos, application videos, Bluebeam, how do I do a component layout? How do I use the Legrand online code tool? I need a submittal. How do I use Composer? And again, what we're showing here, this monitor video will be posted as well. So there's the link to the FAST portal as well as Legrand University portal. You will receive a copy of this presentation. In addition, some newly formed config database videos. So we just did a little bit of a tutorial on how to use Polaris monitor. We've also done the same thing for Polaris config. Now this is the deeper dive, setting up detailed information, like you see the image on the far right-hand side. It's a keypad. It's that I really want to define what keypad it is and the functionality per button well beyond the scope of what monitor is intended for. So we have taken the config creation guide. It's a long 117-page PDF, and we've created over 20 Polaris config how-to videos. So they are available now. They're available in a couple of different places, actually. Now, in this particular case, you might have an end user, we might have an end user that says, hey, I have your system. I was trained on the system when we programmed it. It's 6 months later, and I need to adjust an occupancy sensor. So we have videos. Those 20 videos are now on YouTube. They're today, right now, available on YouTube. It's on a private YouTube channel. So we like to keep this relatively close to our chest and not just make it wide open to the general public, because most people wouldn't care about it. So we're going to ask respectfully that it's available to you. Please send me a request. I will send you the private link. The only way you can find it, if you type in Encelium, you'll get in general Encelium videos, but you won't find the config database videos. So we will provide you the link. We're just going to ask that you use it respectfully and just don't hand it out freely. It's a nice way if somebody says, hey, how do I add a keypad? And you're in talking to somebody and it's a detailed conversation, please use the videos as part of your selling resources to be able to show the functionality. There's 20 of them, so you can surf through. There's over 2.5 hours of video training. So a beautiful resource. Also on resources is there's a links document. We'll provide you the links document. There are, as mentioned, Legrand University portals, our website, the FAST portal. There's how to use the demo kit, different PowerPoint presentations. So there is a Word document that has all of these quick link references. And so we'll provide you those. Many of you have met with me and I provided this to you already, but it's just, again, it's all things Encelium. If you're trying to get additional information, this is a nice way, a one-stop shop to say, here it is. I can scroll down, see that's what I'm looking for, hit the link and get there quickly. We made it to the end. I'm gonna exit out of my presentation mode here, and just wanted to say we're gonna open it up for Q&A, and actually maybe you or Aaron can help me if there's any. I'm not seeing the. I guess I can probably see the chat here, but I know you're still seeing my screen. But is there any, or are there any questions that came up in the chat, or do we want to actually take people off of mute at this point? I would love to hear any of your questions.
Hey Gary, this is Erin. I've got two in the question queue, so I will start with the first one. It says within monitor reports, can you describe what confidence percentages refer to?
Yeah, when you ask, thank you. So let me just repeat it. What does confidence, let me go back here. 1 second here, I'll go here. Let's go to reports and show it here. Occupancy sensing report. Confidence, 68%. So this particular field here is like, so why is it not 100%? So when you ask the system for any data between, let's say, point A and point B, so in this particular case, between July 8th and July 13th, if there were no data interruptions, then the confidence would be 100%. This is a demo site. This is over last week, it went offline because we had a Windows update, right? So if there is a gap in any of the data, what the system will actually do, we don't want to leave blanks in the charts. So we fill in the data with average values, and that ends up lowering the confidence. The less accurate the data is going to be during those periods of off time, right, due to restarts, full configurations, maybe the server going down, a Windows update, etc., will lower the confidence level. Generally speaking, it's going to be very, very high, usually close to 100%, if not 100%. Thank you.
All right, and then we have one more. It says, to use monitor, the config app must be actively running on a PC on site or in the cloud. And then it says, where is the database stored, in the cloud or on a running config app? Awesome.
Yeah, that's a nice heads up from a friend of ours. I'm not sure who said that, but thank you for the reminder. Yeah. So in order to see monitor, remember I said monitor is a reflection of config. So config actually has to be up and running to be able to use monitor. So thank you for that tidbit. The data that you're seeing here is stored on the server, which we call the System Support Unit, or also called SSU. So the SSU will store the data. The data is not graphic, it's just text. So from day one, it's not going to overload the server. It's not a lot of memory required. So over years, thousands of devices over many days and weeks and years, it'll just keep that tally going. If the device is offline or the service is offline, there would be a gap in that data, of course, because there's nothing to the servers. Let's say if the server went offline, it wouldn't capture that data for that particular moment. So again, recap, need the SSU to be running with config on it, running in order to operate config, and then the data that was displayed here is stored on the SSU. Thank you. Do we have any other questions?
So that was it in the question panel.
Awesome. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining. Have 8 minutes of your day back here. My name is Gary Meshberg, as mentioned earlier. Here is my contact information. I know many of you. Please feel free, and you have my contact information. For those that don't, please feel free to reach out to me with any other questions if there's something that I missed here, or if you would say, you know, Gary, this was a nice demo. Could you do it with me at the same time? I'd be happy to jump on a Teams call with you, and I can be the customer and you can demo it to me, and we can help. But if you want to build up your muscle memory and some skills to make sure you got a nice flow and a nice narrative, be more than happy to do that with you all. Having said that, thank you so much for attending. Once again, the information, the links document, the PowerPoint slides, as well as the video recording will be provided to you in the coming days. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you all so very much.